Hey SPURS students, it's Dr. Potocek, and we're here today to talk about Unit 1 goals for SPURS. So what you're going to be doing and what you're going to learn in this first 6 weeks or so of your SPURS class. So, Unit 1 of SPURS provides foundational skills for success in any field in higher education. That is, we're going to teach you some things, some tricks that are really good for rhetoric. We're going to teach you some tricks that are really good for first-year writing courses, of course, because that's what you're in. But we're also going to teach you some foundational skills that I think you can use no matter what field you go into. For instance, the day-to-day work that you'll often be doing in your classroom with your teacher is two really important technical skills. The ability to do real-world research online, in the library, however you choose to do it, and the ability to summarize, which is a skill that oftentimes your college instructors might take for granted. So we're going to get some practice here on how to create efficient summaries. So a lot of that you're going to be doing with your high school teacher, and you're going to be doing that every day in your classroom, and then you'll get feedback from me and from your AIs as to how you're doing and how you can improve on that. Our videos, the places where you and I will talk, sort of, are going to focus on what I think of as like the first principles of rhetoric, and you can see that I put that in quotation marks. Thinking about the really foundational, key, entry-level ideas in order to be a rhetorician. So thinking about audiences, thinking about rhetorical communities, and where those overlap and where they don't. Thinking about stasis theory, which is a series of questions that you can ask yourself to find where arguments are at. And thinking about kairos, which is a form of time in argumentation. These are all kind of ground level skills that you need to be able to successfully start to think about ethos, pathos, and logos, and rhetorical analysis. You can't take these for granted. You have to be able to discuss these before you can really move on to those. And we're also going to talk about evaluating research materials, because this is a real challenge, I think, that's also under-addressed when you get to college. How do you choose the right research material for a class? And in particular, in this class, we're going to talk about learning the difference between informational and opinion articles, which is really important for success on your essays. Okay, so let's talk about your short writing assignments. In this unit, you're going to be doing 3 brief research summaries. We define brief as 300 to 500 words. 3 of those across the course of Unit 1. A research summary is essentially a summary of a single opinion or argument in your controversy. But you're going to want to read the research summary assignment prompts very carefully, because each research summary asks you to add a new task and changes the word limit a little bit. So you don't want to turn in the same type of research summary for research summary 2 as you would for research summary 3, because you're going to be asked again to master a new task as well as building on the previous tasks. But in general, what you'll be doing in each of these 300 to 500 word little short writing assignments is providing a summary of a single opinion source. You're going to pick one opinionated argument from one venue, whether it's the New York Times or a blog post or your local newspaper, and you're going to provide a close summary of what that author is saying. Your job in this is going to be to remain neutral and objective. So your reader, whether that's an AI, whether that's me, whether that's your high school teacher, we shouldn't be able to learn or be able to guess your feelings on the controversy. That is to say, you should be able to summarize something you completely disagree with, and we shouldn't know that. Or you might summarize an argument that you totally agree with, that you think is great, but we should not be able to know that. Your job is to remain neutral and objective. You're going to keep your feelings out of this. And you'll use a mixture of paraphrase and quotation. And if you don't know what that means, you can talk to your high school instructor about that, or you can write an email to your AI, and I'm sure they'll be happy to help you out with that as well. And you'll also provide an MLA, a Modern Language Association style citation for every article you summarize. This is very important. This is a big difference between high school writing and college writing. Everything that you submit in any class in college has to have an appropriate citation. In English and the humanities, we often use MLA. In other fields, they use different styles, Chicago, APA, AMA. It just depends. But Everything that you turn in college will have a citation attached to it. Oftentimes, your teachers might just give you a 0 or refuse to grade your assignment if you have quotations in there, but you do not have an appropriate citation at the end of that paper. So that's going to be a really important skill that you're going to have to focus on in this class. We don't have a lot of time to sort of go over that, but your job will be to make sure that you're providing an MLA citation for every article that you summarize. All this is leading up to the first essay, which we call Mapping the Controversy. So Unit 1 culminates in an extended essay, the first of 3 that you'll write and revise in this class. So remember, you will turn in a roughly 5-page paper for Unit 1. We call that essay 1.1. You'll get a grade on it, 5% of your grade, actually a very small percentage of your grade. And you'll get a lot of feedback on what to do and what changes to make on it. You'll be asked to revise it. This is a requirement. This isn't optional. And you'll turn in the revised essay for 10% of your grade. So actually quite a bit more than the original version was worth. That's because an essay gets better as it gets feedback. It gets stronger. So we want to reward you for looking at that feedback and then making changes based on that. So you'll turn in essay 1.1. You'll get feedback from your instructor, and then you will turn it in again for a new grade. And we'll repeat that process at the end of Unit 2 and the end of Unit 3 with essays in different genres. So your first essay in this class is a mapping essay, and that's a description of the controversy that you were studying. This is a really unique essay. You probably have never written anything like this before. This is not a traditional research paper. And I'm not going to go over all the requirements for it right now, because you can, after you watch this video, go to the assignments tab and read. There's a very long prompt for this assignment, and you should read it and make sure that you understand it. But one key thing to know is that this isn't a traditional research paper. You're not going to take a controversy like climate change and write me a 5-page paper about the history of climate change and why it's a bad thing and what we should do about it. That's not the type of work that you'll do in this class. Instead, a mapping essay focuses on the communities that are involved in a controversy and on identifying the different arguments that are being made by those communities. So someone who's writing a Mapping the Controversy essay or a mapping essay should really understand what are the major lines of argumentation in my controversy. If my controversy is climate change, which is way too big a controversy, if you were actually writing about that, I would force you to narrow that down. But let's just say for a second that you're writing about climate change. What you need to know then are, who are the communities involved in this? Who's actively talking and who's an active stakeholder? And of course, we'll define rhetorical communities a bit more in another video. And then what are all the different arguments that are being made? What places are they in stasis? How can I organize all this material? So the thing is that a mapping essay is interested in the history of a controversy. We ask you to talk about that in about a paragraph or two. But it's not a traditional research paper. You're not going to spend a lot of time telling me that climate change was first identified in 1950s by environmental scientists, blah, 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 right? Instead, you're going to focus on a specific question, a specific controversial point, and you're going to tell me the communities that are making arguments and what the major arguments they're making are. You're going to have a fairly rich sense of this controversy. You'll discuss 6 different opinion pieces in this essay. And to that end, you can revise and reuse parts of your 3 research summaries if they're germane. If your idea for your controversy doesn't change over the course of the weeks that you're writing research summaries, great. You can use parts of those 3 research summaries and incorporate them, and then you only have to find 3 more opinion pieces in this essay. What you don't want to do is just add whole cloth, all 500 words of your research summary and say, haha, all right, now I've got 3 pages of my essay written already. That's a good way to get a bad grade on the mapping essay, because what the research summary does is a little different than what you're asked to do in the mapping essay. So pay attention to that. But you can reuse those sources, because that's how good research works, right? We build on our research. and then we use it. Just like in the last one, you'll remain objective and neutral in this essay. Your goal is to describe. Your goal is not to comment. So again, reading through this, I shouldn't know which sides of the controversy you agree with and which sides you disagree with. Let's talk about something important that doesn't always get addressed in these kinds of classes, which is how will Unit 1 help you in college? So there's kind of 4 main ways in which it will help you. First off, I know you've done some research before, you're high school students, but you're going to continue to practice real-world research skills. You're going to learn what works for you, you're going to learn how to research for this class, and that's going to help you carry forward into your other classes. No matter what class you take at the college level, some research is going to be involved. You're going to practice objectivity, which is learning to identify and to summarize the claims and evidence of an argument before judging their effectiveness. In this unit, we're not going to allow you to judge their effectiveness. You're not going to say, I think this author is right and this author's wrong. I think this writer is correct and this writer is wrong. This is a key skill in critical thinking. Being objective, being able to look at an argument, to identify and summarize the claims and the evidence that it makes before coming to judge it, is a really crucial skill in both college and in the real world. You don't learn anything if you've already prejudged an argument, if you've already decided that it's right or wrong. The real task is to sort of empathetically engage in the headspace of the article by thinking, what are the claims? What are the evidence that's being provided by the author? Does this all make sense? And sort of holding that there for a second before you decide to sort of accept or dismiss this argument. So you're going to practice that objectivity. This is another really important one for higher education and for your job outside of higher education, which is you will model a complex real-world controversy, and you'll learn to understand key areas where disagreement and debate are occurring. No matter what field you go into in college, and no matter what job you have afterwards, you will be asked to take a stand and take a position in complicated real-world debates, both as a civic actor. If you think about politics, you're being asked to do that, but also just within your job fields, whether you're trying to identify the best possible treatment for physical therapy for sports injuries, or whether you're trying to decide on whether or not to use a particular startup in your business. You're going to be dealing with complex real-world issues where there are a lot of different arguments being made and there isn't a clear or easy answer. So this unit is going to help you think about how to model that out, how to sort of line up. These are where all the different possible points of agreement and disagreement are, which will help you then know how to move forward as you want to voice your own opinion. And lastly, you'll gain proficiency in college-level quotation, paraphrase, citation, and summary skills. You may not actually use heavy quotation or paraphrase in your job outside of college, but you'll use it every day when you're in college. So the more familiarity you can get with, how do I effectively quote from an article? When do I paraphrase? When is a paraphrase too close to a quotation, and so I have to go back and change it? And how do I cite things? These are all things that you'll use every day in college. Okay, so those are just some of the ways in which this unit is going to be of practical use to you in college and in the real world beyond it. Beyond, of course, I think just being kind of a fun thing to do and an interesting way to figure out how the world around us works. So I'll sign off on this lesson. Please take the brief quiz after this, which just sort of reasserts that you've watched this video and that you can tell me the key points from this video. And I will talk to you again soon.